All right, good afternoon. I'm Matt Weintraub, Bucks County District Attorney. I'm here with Jim Martin, Lehigh County's District Attorney, Kate Kohler, one of our Assistant District Attorneys, and members of the Bethlehem PSP and Bethlehem Dublin Barracks. I'm here to announce additional charges against Christian Willman, who is a former teacher in the Parkland School District in Lehigh County, and at least at this point, a former teacher in the Palisades School District, which is in Bucks County. He is a 39-year-old male. I want to make sure, first and foremost, that the community understands that it is safe from this man, and secondly, to ask for additional information. This is a call to more potential victims and witnesses that may be out there. Before I get into some additional remarks that I have to make, I'd like to introduce and ask Jim Martin, the District Attorney in our neighboring county of Lehigh, to come forward and say a few words.
Thank you, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. Incidentally, Matt and I did not exchange emails about what our wardrobe was going to consist of today. I feel like we should be in the same glee club here. Seriously, first of all, thank you, Matt, for inviting me. We referred two cases from Lehigh County down here because we knew of the defendant's involvement at Palisades High School. The cases arose in Lehigh County as a result of direct communication from the Parkland School District's superintendent, Rich Snizak. Two of the victims in Lehigh County, who had been students at the Parkland High School there, reported to a teacher with whom they were familiar of the conduct of this defendant. That teacher immediately notified the superintendent, who immediately notified my office. So very pleased about the cooperation that we received from Parkland School District, and particularly the superintendent, Mr. Snizak. Also pleased that this prosecution is going to go forward here in Bucks County. It makes sense. We did what we call a McPhail letter to transfer the prosecution from Lehigh County down here because of the also multiple victims in Bucks County, and I'm sure it's in good hands with Mr. Weintraub in his office. So, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
So I just want to give you a little bit of background now about this defendant. From 2001 to 2011, he worked at the Parkland High School in South Whitehall in Lehigh. He was a former industrial arts and tech ed teacher there. He was also a boys soccer coach and stage crew and theater supervisor. From 2011 to April of 2018, he then worked at Palisades High School here in Bucks County, where he was the former robotics and technology teacher and the girls soccer coach. He committed we allege, a series of sexual assaults against his female students and student athletes over the course of his employ at both of these schools. He's already charged, as we stood here before today, with assaulting two Bucks County residents. And today the main thrust of this press conference is to alert you that he is being charged on the same criminal complaint by amendment with victimizing 4 additional students in Lehigh County, as D.A. Martin alluded to. His bail will remain at $1 million, 10%. There will not be a rearrangement because we're proceeding via amendment. These young women are, of course, incredibly brave for having come forward and deserve to see this man brought to justice. But that's only part of what we have to explain to you today and implore the public's help. This defendant clearly abused his position of power to gain steady access to many young unwitting women. His behavior is predatory in nature. There was a pattern that we allege, and you will see in the charging documents, and that is he essentially created an assembly line for his twisted sexual perversion. All of his victims are young women. All were students at the schools in which he taught. He waits for them to turn age 16. He then resorts to flattery, then to text messages, then physical abuse. and stops victimizing his victims once they leave the high school, whether it be through graduation or other means. We do have reason to believe that there may be other victims because of gaps in our timeline that just don't seem natural. I don't believe in coincidence. And there also may be people who have information about the identity of those victims, if not the victims themselves. We're seeking those people and any additional witnesses who can corroborate evidence of these crimes. We're also looking for video or other forms of electronic evidence in the possession of former students or other people. And finally, a word to any parents that may be watching this conference. If your child had this man as a teacher, a club advisor, or a coach, please talk to her. Make sure that she's okay. Don't interview her. Make sure that she's okay. And contact us. Specifically, contact Trooper Christopher Cleveland at PSP Dublin at 215-766-5030. 215-766-5030. If you have any information that may be important to this investigation, and let us be the judge of that. If you have any information, please report it. And finally, if you may have had some kind of contact with this man of the type that I just described, you may not consider yourself to be a victim in a traditional sense of the word, either because perhaps Willman convinced you that he loved you, or because you may not have said no to his advances because your will was overborne, or he convinced you that it was okay, or for any of a variety of reasons. But let us be the judge of whether or not you were one of his victims, whether his contact was inappropriate and criminal. You're not alone, and you should not feel embarrassed to come forward and stand up for yourself and to help support other victims. As I said, we will be standing by awaiting your calls. Trooper Cleveland has been assigned as primary investigator in this case, but we will continue to work together with our brothers and sisters in law enforcement in Lehigh County and any other jurisdiction where this man may have preyed on innocent victims. That's all that I have. If anybody has any questions, I will try to answer them at this time. And I believe D.A. Martin may do the same.
You said, if he said that he loved you, is that something that he said to a lot of the women or the victims or the young girls?
I don't want to get into specifics, but at least in general, with respect to the probable cause affidavit and charging information, he would create the fiction of a relationship, a consensual relationship with these young students of his. So it's very possible that he convinced them that there was some love relationship going on.
Matt, you said he had an assembly line set up. So he had a system, 16-year-old girls that he went after, and he did the same thing and stuck to the same MO each time.
That's certainly what our evidence shows at this point. Obviously, we have to prove that in a court of law, but I don't believe in coincidences, and we have 6 victims that essentially are telling us the same account.
Was there any indication that his departure from Parkland and arrival at Palisades had anything to do with either allegations of this or investigations of this by the districts?
I don't have that information at this time, Benny, so I couldn't comment on that. Sorry.
It had nothing to do with Parkland, I can tell you that.
Did the 4 in the Lehigh Valley come forward after the charges were filed here? Is that why you're hopeful more people will see this?
That's a good question, a fair question, Deanna. There was a mixture. Some of the information was learned by the Lehigh County authorities before we learned of ours at Palisades, and some we gleaned as a result of further investigation. And I suspect we're not done yet.
This was going on for a number of years now. How do you think he was able to keep this quiet and he wasn't found out for years and years?
The power of apparent love is a powerful thing. Sometimes it can be used to silence people, especially if their will is overborne. I can't say specifically, but that's what I'm betting on.
And is he currently incarcerated or is he free on bail?
He's currently incarcerated on $1 million, and he could be free if he posts 10% of that.
And how long has he been incarcerated? I thought he posted bail in May.
Since April.
Oh, he's been
Yes, consistently incarcerated since his initial charges were filed. Pardon? Oh, Meg, I'm sorry, Meg.
So he never goes to bail.
No, he has not.
Matt, can you say when the victims from Lehigh County came forward?
I would prefer not to, and in fact, since there's more than one, they would be all different times. Just don't want to pin down to that because I don't know explicitly. Anybody else?
Can you talk about some of the length of period these incidents might have taken place with these individuals?
I don't want to be pinned down to that as either, but I can tell you that a lot of the instances would start once these victims reach age 16, and then they would essentially age out of victimhood once they graduated or left high school, to give you a rough basis.
Matt, can you just talk about some of the evidence you have? I mean, texting back and forth between victims. Is there video evidence from school property?
I'm going to rely on the probable cause affidavit for that. I don't want to comment further than that.
Can you talk a little bit about what he's charged with and what are the possible penalties?
He is charged with sexual assault by a sports official. He's charged with corruption of minors. He's charged with, I believe, institutional sexual assault and other sexual-related offenses.
Are there any other coaching jobs out there that he may have had from youth leagues, other counties? I mean, he seemed to have traveled pretty far from Coopersburg to the Lehigh Valley. Could there be other coaching jobs we don't know about?
That's fair to ask. I don't know the answer to that, but I'm hoping that as a result of this press conference, we may learn about that, and that would give us another avenue to investigate, certainly. Anybody else? Mr. Martin?
Just one comment in answering to a question that was posed. Two victims that we know of presently who came forward in Lehigh County came forward in March of 2018. I'm sorry, 2019. I misspoke.
Could you, I apologize for having a little repetition here, could you give us a sense of how it is that you learned about these new cases versus the cases that were already in the pipeline?
Well, we learned, sorry, we learned of them through a former student coming forward, speaking to a former teacher who alerted the superintendent of schools in the Parkland School District, Rich Snizak, who alerted our office. We began an investigation. There was a child abuse investigator in my office. He met with the two young women. The allegation, at least in Lehigh County, is that these events took place many years earlier.
How concerned are you that there are even more folks out there within your jurisdiction?
Well, obviously, I share the same concern as Mr. Weintraub does. We hope that by alerting the public to this incident and these incidents, that if there are other victims, they'll feel free to come forward.
Based on what's already happened?
Correct.
Mr. Weintraub, you, with regard to these kind of cases, how broad do you think this is? How active do you think this guy was, Mr. Willman?
We already know that he was too active, and it's too broad, because we have 6 victims. We hope to not be counting beyond that, but that's the reason for the press conference, Bruce. If there are other victims out there or other witnesses out there, this is our plea for their help and our urging them to come forward so that we can either get them the treatment that they need, and we can continue to prosecute this man for anyone that he may have victimized.
Any lessons to be learned in terms of how he made his initial contact and so forth with these young people?
He used his power as a teacher or a club, running a club at school or as a coach to prey on the weakest people in our society, and that's our children and our students. I don't want to say it's not okay to trust teachers, because it is, but you just got to make sure that no line is being crossed. And for all the parents out there, there's no substitute for talking to your kids, making sure that they're physically and mentally healthy, and that all the relationships that they enjoy at school are healthy and appropriate ones.
D.A. Martin, just not to put too fine a point on it, but you said 2 victims came forward in March of this year.
And I'm sorry, I misspoke. I was confused. It's March of 2018.
2018.
Right.
So this gentleman was arrested in Bucks County in May of this year. So did these investigations run parallel? Did you know at the time that there were separate claims in Bucks County, and that's how they were combined? Or?
What we knew in Bucks County was, as a result of the investigation that was going on in Lehigh County, we learned of a state police investigation here in Dublin. And at that point, I think we pretty much turned it over to Bucks County.
And the remaining 2 in Lehigh County, because there was 4 total in Lehigh, they came forward later after the charges were filed in Bucks County?
They came forward here in Bucks County, not to us.
The 2 women in Lehigh County came to Bucks County?
No. there are 4 women from Lehigh County.
Right.
Yes.
2 of them came forward initially in March of 2018. The other 2 must have come forward after that here in Bucks County.
I understand.
Okay.
So would it be 2 in Lehigh County, then 2 in Bucks County, then 2 in Lehigh County in terms of the chronology of who came, that's how they came
I'll
forward?
defer to him on that.
I don't want to get bogged down in this, Bruce, because when they came forward isn't as important as where we're heading with this investigation. And frankly, if we're going to get any more, if there are any more victims out there, that's the essence of why we're making this plea to the public. I pray that there aren't, but if there are, we want to make sure that we take care of them, get them the counseling and treatment that they deserve, and to make sure that Mr. Willman is prosecuted to the fullest extent for all of his crimes against all of his victims. All right, thank you all very much. We'll leave this up.